Welcome to the Nürburgring 24 Hours, held in 2005, a few weeks earlier than normal, and that has brought some very inclement weather. Nevertheless, 180,000 fans gathering to watch the biggest race held these days around the famous Nürburgring Nordschleife. Indeed, the circuit includes the big track, they call it the Green Hell, together with the Grand Prix circuit. But this was what it was like when the cars came out on the warm-up lap. The big battle here between the two factory BMWs, that Viper, which has won in the past, and the Porsches from the Olaf Manthe team and the Uwe Altzen team. The Altzen car, perhaps the most Porsche ever built for racing, complete with a four-wheel drive. The Viper, of course, with 6.2 litres. But the Viper had to be modified this year to comply with the regulations, and that took a little bit off the top. The car run by Peter Zakowski, who had his own Formula One team years ago, and we can just see that Zakowski car now, originally 8 litres, reduced to 6.2 litres. Actually, they're running it as a V8 rather than a V10, which is quite an interesting way to go. Here is Peter Zakowski. Well, yes, we have reduced the cubic capacity down to 6.2 litres by shutting off 2 cylinders, and we still use the same head and block. So it's the first Viper which is a V8, but by doing this we don't have to run the air restrictor, so the engine gets a little bit more air, and that will certainly help us a little bit. Certainly fewer fueling stops for the Schnitzer BMW and the Manthe Porsche compared with the Zakspeed car. And we can go on board here with the Olaf Manthe number 46 machine. Thanks to the lower cubic capacity, we're allowed to have less weight. 2 years ago, we still had a turbo, which meant we had to run 100 kilograms heavier than with the regular injection engine. So this means we have a better fuel consumption, and we can run longer stints, says Olaf Manthe, whose cars have done so well in the past in the Porsche Super Cup. Now this is the stupendous 996 Turbo of the Altzen brothers, and this is a car which is expected to be very fast indeed. And amongst the drivers, Peter Dumbreck, who some of you will recall flipping over at Le Mans, been a regular in the DTM in recent years, but sadly has lost his ride for 2005. So the Altzen Porsche putting it on pole position, and that certainly is a car to watch in this race. Brothers Uwe and Jürgen Altzen have been running Porsches for a long time, but this car looks rather different. But the Schnitzer team running the BMWs, Hans Stuck saying, well, the conditions we've got really would play into the hands of the four-wheel drive Porsche. But we know that that car can be quite fragile, so I've still got very high hopes here. We're going to be quite light on the tyre wear and the fuel consumption. There's the lineup for drivers, the top 8 cars there. Well, here is the start, and the big news is not who's out in front, but the problems that the black and silver Porsche is having. You see it's dropping back, and the electrics have been drowned, apparently. And into the lead goes Duncan Huisman, one of the 2 Dutch racing brothers. His brother Patrick not taking part. The Viper is in second place. It's Jörg Müller who is in third. In 2001, Jörg Müller. Oh, and we got a spinner, and that's the Viper of Marcus Grossman. And I think the Porsche of Peter Mamarau was also involved in that incident. So the Viper is going well. The pole-sitting car is dropping back all the time. We'll surely have to make a pit stop. Let's have a look at this incident again. And yeah, the Viper was certainly tipped by the 36 Porsche into a spin. And the Nissan went round as well, the 44 car. And we can go on board the 44, which is driven by Roland Asch, famous name from the German Touring Car Championship, and always somebody very quick. So work in the pits here, and this is Peter Mammerau's car.
Links war eine Viper, die Zackspeed Viper.
On the left was the Zackspeed Viper, which spun, hitting me in the left front. That damaged my radiator, and that was really it. I can't believe it. It's the first lap, and already we've got these problems. And another very unhappy man, Uwe Altsen. The pole position car is brought into the pits. Apparently problems with the engine, and the Altsen team will go to work. Problems in the turbocharger area. Well, everything was going to plan, says Jürgen Altsen. But then we had the second exploratory lap, and everything just drowned. We had lots of water in the inlet manifold, and everything stopped working. It's taking us a lot of time to sort this out, dry everything up, and, well, I think we're going to lose about an hour, so we've got a lot of catching up to do. So, with that problem, Peter Zakowski out in front in the Viper, the son of team owner Eric Zakowski, and then the BMWs, and look at that, off goes the Viper under pressure from the BMW. Well, goodness me. Well, that was at Breitscheid, the lowest point of the circuit. There's the second of the three start groups. Over 200 competitors in this race. They're split into three starting groups. And amongst the cars in this group, Claudia Hürtgen in a BMW 320. Early problems also for the British driver Willie Moore in the Philips BMW, expected to be the leading British contender. He is already out, apparently damaged to a radiator. Meanwhile, at the front, the two factory V8-powered BMWs. This is going to be their last season. And since they were banned from the American Le Mans Series, they've been specialising in these long-distance races. Lucas Luhr there in the Manthey Porsche in third place. Then Dirk Adolf in the V8 Star Jaguar. This is Roland Asch in the four-wheel drive Nissan Skyline. It's been a regular at this race for a number of years. The track seems to be drying out a little bit. And of course a lot of lapping to do, cars of very many different speeds. And there are problems for Duncan Heisman in the BMW. And he is limping in. Apparently he touched a Honda Integra while he was lapping it. The driver hadn't seen the fast arriving Heisman. So that car needs some repairs. And there you see the incident, and both of them spun. Well, that is one of the problems you have in the Nürburgring 24 hours. The Schnitzer team under team boss Charlie Lamb will go to work. Leads Dirk Muller, the unrelated Jörg Muller, Hans-Joachim Stuck, and Pedro Lamy at the wheel. Meanwhile, the Manthey Porsche in second place. And this is Arthur Deutgen, I think lives inside the Nürburgring. Completed some 12 laps, and he's going to hand the Red Bull car over to Dieter Quester. Hugely experienced driver of Porsches and BMWs. This is Arthur Deutgen. Well, it's starting to dry out a little bit. There have been rivers running across the track. It really is very difficult to drive. I tried to save my tyres from the beginning, and that paid off because we've gone from 15th starting place to 4th position. So little known outside Germany, Arthur Deutgen doing a fantastic job in that BMW. They only stopped for 3 minutes. The Zackspeed team, meanwhile, catching up after that spin. And look at the rooster tails out of the back on this magnificent circuit. Problems there for the V8 Star machine. The Jaguar silhouette car, Dirk Adolf, who was expected to go very well indeed. And a trip through the gravel for the number 13, the little Mazda from Matador Tyres. 9 laps down, and the Altson Porsche re-enters the race. I'll be interested to see what Peter Dumbreck can do in 216th position. Here's the car which is running in second place. Lucas Lure just climbed out of it. And then back into the fray. We decided to come in and hand over to Timo and switch to slicks because we're just losing too much time now. The tyres are getting very hot. He'll have to look out for the puddles, so it's a bit of a gamble, really. There is a separate section in this race for cars running on alternative fuels, including biodiesel. And here's that rapper we saw earlier in the VW Beetle, Smurdo. He's sharing the car with Tom Van Lewis, Rudy Seyer and Torsten Stadler. That car running in position 100 after 2.5 hours, 5th in its class. Here's some of this biodiesel being mixed up. The Ford Germany PR team were one of the first outfits to become involved in this special category. Indeed, this is a return visit for the VW Beetle on its special fuel, which is derived from the rapeseed, as you can see from that backdrop there. This was a year ago, and the car, having a problem right near the end, actually was pushed to the finish line and was classified in position 138. This is Smudo again. Well, this time he wanted to go a little bit better. Last year, well, we had that problem. And now 12 months later saying, well, this year I want to be very focused and have a really good finish. Really what we're looking for is the top 5 in the alternative fuels category. But I have to say this year the competition is much tougher. There were 25, maybe 26 cars in our class and a lot of very good drivers. For instance, Timo Scheider is driving in an Alfa Romeo, so he's a top DTM driver. So this class really does seem to have caught on, and we'll see what we can do. So here is this special fuel, and it smells rather different to normal diesel, they tell me. And Smudo was all over the place. Here he is in the media centre at the Nürburgring, checking on the weather. So obviously into his racing in a very big way indeed. And the Beetle running, as you see, on Korean Kumho tyres. So the best of luck to Smudo and the rest of the boys in that alternatively fueled Volkswagen Beetle. New shape, of course. And it appears he also relies on the Red Bull to keep him wide awake. Meanwhile, we've got a yellow flag period and a problem for Dirk Muller. And the car coming back into the pits, and this is not a routine stop. Apparently on the slicks, Dirk Muller having a problem. There's Charlie Lamb. And I think we can find out in just a moment from Dirk Muller what happened. So both the BMWs having problems in this race. Dirk Muller saying, well, suddenly I went into a big rain shower and it was down at Hatzenbach, so that made it really difficult for me, and I had to complete a whole lap with it raining, and it really was very, very heavy, and there was also giant hailstones. At one stage I was leading about 8 or 9 cars and they were just following me, although I was going so slowly, and there was rivers across the track. It was like powerboating, says Dirk Muller. And then all of a sudden I just lost control and touched a crash barrier, and behind me there was all kinds of chaos, people sliding off everywhere. So Muller coming in to repair the damaged suspension. The Team Falcon Nissan moving up to fourth place. Roland Ash, the lead driver, together with Japanese fellow competitors. The Zakspeed Viper now in the lead of the race, despite being reduced to its 8 cylinders and having survived that small accident early on. So at the front, the Zakspeed Viper chased by the Olaf Manthe team Porsche, with the Porsche factory drivers. And here's another leading Porsche from the Land Motorsport team, always a quick car here, and that was up to 10th place. There is the Manthe Porsche. Lucas Law amongst the drivers. Timo Bernard, drivers regularly seen in the American Le Mans series. There is the Nissan, which is only seen in Europe at this race. And the Viper pushing on, the Nissan there, driven by Takayuki Kinoshita. Incidentally, both cars can boast about 1350 kilos. Here's a BMW very much on the charge. This is Johannes Schneid. Had a problem on the opening lap, now back in the top 20. And he pulls past one of the Kisling Opel Astra coupes. And the Marshall's working really hard here. The Schubert team at BMW, the yellow car, is leading its class, lapping in about 9 minutes 50. Only about 40 seconds down on the very fastest car, so that machine going very well with only 300 horsepower and running up in the top 15. And a beautiful rainbow behind the pits here at the Nürburgring as we head towards the fourth hour. Well, this is the V8 Star Opel. This is a tubular frame car that used to race in the now defunct Star series from the Irmscher team. Crashed in the Flugplatz and trying to limp its way back to the pits with hundreds of cars coming by. And looking down here on the Grand Prix circuit and a packed paddock, and the Zakowski Lechner Burt Viper leads by just over a minute from the Lure Bernard Collard machine. Here is further down the field an Audi 200 Quattro in 10th place. So already some of the less powerful cars moving up the field. Back then in the number 1 BMW with Jörg Müller at the wheel, now competes in the World Touring Car Championship. Been a BMW driver for a long time, has Jörg Müller. And they are playing catch-up to the Viper and the Manthe Porsche, which lie first and second. And the Viper has been running without any problems. The Zakspeed team also run the kart track here at the Nürburgring and been involved in motor racing just down the road for many, many years. So back out onto the racetrack as it starts to get dusk here, and a long way to go. Peter Zagowski, we just maintained our rhythm. We've managed to do very well so far, but we still need a bit of luck. And I think we're picking the right tyres, and I'm very excited. Now, direct encounter here between the second BMW, the number 2 car. Did I say earlier it was number 11? It is actually number 2. And being passed, is it by the Viper? Yes, it is. So these two cars quite closely matched. And there is the Mamoral Porsche, which has abandoned the race, with regular GT contender Wolfgang Kaufmann climbing out. And appears that they've collided with another car. So, the end of the road for them. The Falcon tyres backed Nissan still going very well. There's some of the Japanese team watching on in the garage area. But that car has dropped out of the top 5 as it races through the evening sun here at this most magnificent of circuits. Meanwhile, back to the Viper. Of course, that car won the race in 1999, 2001 and 2002. Meanwhile, back with the BMW, the number 68 car of Diller Motorsport, who quite often run cars in the UK. And the 68 car briefly breaking into the top 3 here. The fans preparing for a night, probably with a little bit of beer, I wouldn't wonder, and the odd plate of sauerkraut and sausage. Yes, the beer is already in place. The barbecues are going. And more damage there. And, well, that's going to have a long time in the pits sorting that out. Still a battle going on between the Nissan 44 car and the Schneid BMW number 10. That's the light blue car. They are racing wheel to wheel there. And the Japanese drivers acquitting themselves very well here. Well, they're absolutely side by side, plunging around the Nürburgring, this circuit, which is such a challenge. I'm not sure if that was a thank you or a wave fist. Still side by side at the front, the BMW number 2 and the Zach Speed. But the BMW currently, after those problems, actually lying in 5th place and 2 laps behind the Viper, so it needs to make up on the car, which has won 3 times in the past. Here's a big shunt into the barrier there, and the little Honda pitched back in front of the rest of the field, and that's Dennis Cribbin. Problems for the Viper, just running out of fuel as it comes into the pit lane, trying to do 9 laps on a tank, and apparently the reserve tank failed, so, well, a bit of a lucky break in a way.
Der war schon planmäßig, wir sind nur reingekommen und unser Reservesystem im Tank hat etwas gesprochen.
That was scheduled. We came in and our fuel reserve system had a minor problem, so just as we got to the pit lane, it ran out. We were on the last few droplets and then it stopped, but we've been a bit lucky, says Peter Zekowski, 3 times winner of this race. So in the lead, Lucas Luhr, Timo Bernhard, Emanuele Collard and the former Mercedes-Benz driver Marcel Thiemann in that lead car. Here's yet another typical Nürburgring 24-hour incident. And the Audi comes across the Opel, the Kisling team Opel, and that gets taken out. Well, dearie me, hopefully they can survive that clash. And the fireworks being let off, which I'm not sure is very good in the forest there. Meanwhile, as we mentioned, former DTM Opel driver Peter Dumbreck taking part in this race and seeing the fireworks.
I did this race last year and you can see them from the track and you can smell the burgers cooking on the barbecues and stuff, so it's a great experience. It's just a pity the weather's a little bit wet, but that's what happens when you race in May, I guess.
Yes, so the lights cutting a swathe through the Nürburgring darkness, still the rain coming down, and we're heading towards 1/3 distance here at the Nürburgring. Been a race of changing fortunes, of course, but this is the car currently leading the 3 factory Porsche drivers, backed up by Marcel Thiemann. Both BMWs playing catch-up. So the glorious sights and sounds of racing in the night through the Nürburgring. Remember, there's going to be a first ever 24-hour race at Silverstone in 2005 for the Brit car competitors. And just look at these images here. But still a very, very long way to go at the Nürburgring. Current positions there, you see the Porsche leading from the Viper, then the two factory BMWs, then the Nissan back to 5th place, and then old-timer Dieter Quester up in 6th position. And behind them, number 15, noteworthy, that's Jackie Ickx's daughter, who is running there in the top 20. Good performance by her. There is an Audi accelerating away. No official factory Audi efforts in this year's race, and no official factory Opel entry either. Remember, a couple of years ago, the race was won by a modified DTM Opel, driven by, amongst others, Walter Steichek, the boss of Opel Motorsport. So the lead car comes into the pits here. And Lucas Luhr will take over from Marcel Thiemann. And Thiemann, a very talented driver, seems to have lost his way a little bit in recent years. Was a member of the Mercedes-Benz squad 4 or 5 years ago, but does not have a regular ride in the DTM at the moment, as you might expect a man of this talent. Well, all the track on the Nordschleife is now dry, but here on the Grand Prix part of the circuit, still a little wet. You have to be very careful. But I'd say the right tyres to be on are slicks, and you can see the difficult points quite easily now. There's quite a lot of sand and mud being thrown onto the circuit where some cars have been off, and that also is something you have to watch for, says Marcel Thiemann, who is driving the leading car. So racing through the night then, the pit stops, the battle out front with the Zack-Speed of Viper, very strong. Extraordinary to blank out 2 of the cylinders and run it as a V8, but it seems to be working pretty well. Meanwhile, BMW have been the most successful manufacturer in this race over the years. The race started in 1970 with a BMW. 2004, Dirk Muller, Jörg Muller, Hans-Jürgen Stuck and Pedro Lamy won in the GT-R. They're looking for their second successive victory. There is Hans Stuck getting back in. Extraordinarily, he won this race in 1970, and his second victory in it was 2004. Charlie Lamb saying, well, we've had to change our strategy a little bit because of the weather, and in fact we've needed more fuel than we'd originally anticipated, so we hope to do 10 laps a stint, but that's not always quite possible. So another change with the lead Porsche. Marcel Thiemann incidentally won this race for Opel in 2003 when he drove with Steichek and Manuel Reuter and Timo Scheider. Well, this man appears to need his sleep. But what about the team bosses? Go to sleep when it's all over, says Olaf Manthe. Why should we sleep? We've got all these young mechanics, they're up all night at discos. And Charlie Lamb saying, I don't need relief, a bit of drama here. A small fire in the Outzen Brothers Porsche, which has been battling its way up through the field. And then drama for the number 1 BMW, looking to score its second successive victory. Gearbox problems by the look of things. And the team go to work. Certainly going to lose a lot of time with this. There is Dirk Muller contemplating the situation. Well, Dirk Muller can tell us now exactly what the problem is with the BMW. We do have a problem with the gearbox, as you can probably see. It's well, we're having a problem trying to shift gears with it, so the only thing we can do is change the gearbox. So that's probably going to take 20 or 30 minutes, I should think. The number 2 BMW still in second place, and that's the Pedro Lamy, Boris Said, Duncan Heisman and Andy Prio driven car. Remember, the number 1 BMW has had the gearbox change. Pedro Lamy, the Portuguese driver, briefly raced for Lotus, has won this before, driving for Opel, and prior to that driving in the Zack Speed Viper, so he knows his way very well around this BMW circuit. And look at this, the Manthe Porsche being towed in, got stuck between 2 gears, and apparently the engine buzzed round to 11,000. So dramas there, and that's great news for BMW, terrible news for Manthe, of course. So the BMW number 2 now in the lead, and that's looking very good for the BMW, because it has a big gap over the second place car, which is that Nissan you just saw. And we can check out the positions right now, and 4 laps between Pedro Lamy, Boris Said from California, Duncan Heisman and Andy Prio from Britain. And, well, you see the rest of the positions going through. And the British-driven car in 16th place there, Ian Mitchell and Phil Bennett, 2 of the drivers. And here is the Schneid BMW. Now, that team won this race in 1996 and 1997, so they certainly know what they're doing. In fact, Peter Sikowski drove in that car in 1997 for that team before he decided to tackle the race in the Viper. And there the 4th placed BMW continues on its way. The 77 Viper now down in 7th place, but one of the fastest cars out on the track. The number 1 BMW still playing catch-up with its new gearbox. And Jörg Muller's just put in a couple of very fast laps indeed. And a chance of a BMW 1-2 is still on the cards, but the 1 car, of course, lost all that time. Here's a problem, number 37. This is the Wolf Sylvester, Thomas Dill, Peter Bonk and Urs Schild Porsche. Has clashed with the 57 car by the look of things. And that car driven by, amongst others, James Whelan from Guildford, Del Delarond and Andrew Grant. Problem there for the 214, but another British car in trouble is the 86 machine. Stuart Wright, Howard Redhouse, John Grant and Peter Hardman driving that car. That's a regular in Brit car. Obviously a collapsed front suspension. Down in the lesser classes, still some mighty action going on. And 2 more top 10 cars in problems. This is the Schneid BMW, and that looks as if it's blown up in a very big way. And the Land Porsche, the number 40 car, damaged suspension, must have tapped one of the slower cars, crabbing itself back to the pits. Hopefully they can fix that. But they'll be completely out of the order. Oh, the Honda Integra 217 having a very big moment. Finally, it sorts it all out. Meanwhile, now, as we head towards mid-morning, both the BMWs going very well indeed after their previous problems. The number 2 car just about to come out again. Well, we've seen Morgan's racing at Le Mans, and here's one at the Nürburgring. This is the 88 car. It's German prepared, but amongst the drivers, the huge Morgan enthusiast Keith Arlers, together with Michael Bock and Christian Bock. go back on board with 46. Lucas Lure having a big moment and clanging against the Armco. Well, what happened there? The car had only been back on the track for 2 laps. I just wonder if that was a legacy of the former incident. Here's that Beetle with its biodiesel power. And it's running very well indeed. 5th in class, 45th overall. But leading that category is an Alpha 147. There it is. And 2 very well-known drivers in it, Timo Scheider and Michael Bartels, who was briefly a Lotus Grand Prix driver. Originally had planned to drive a Maserati here. Audi estate car, RS4 of Uwe Bleck. And I've driven one of these on the road, and they are absolutely fantastic machines. And Bleck going very well. We've created a little gap behind us now. Of course, you have to look ahead. We were already in 4th place, and that was despite a technical defect which cost us some 10 minutes. So an estate car in 4th place. Well, remember the Volvos. Volvo Estates racing in the BTCC, but this is a fantastic performance. Here in 6th place, the Porsche GT3. Amongst the drivers, Dr. Edgar Althoff and Paul Hoovenschneid, who were on the podium in 2002. And the 41 Porsche also going strongly. Heinz-Josef Böhms and Dieter Schornstein, one of the real experts at the Nürburgring. So the 41 car well inside the top 10. And its sister machine, driven amongst others by Jackie Eaks's daughter, Vanina Eaks.
I didn't expect much. I expected to have a lot of work in the car because I was told the Nürburgring and the Nordschleife was very, very difficult, and with the weather, the conditions were so extreme that I was really wondering where I was going. Now I cannot believe that we are in the top 10.
Yes, indeed, just 4 hours left to go now, and it's BMW's first and second, the factory cars. Andy Priaulx there from Guernsey in the lead with Boris Said, Duncan Huisman and Pedro Lamy. And there you see the rest of the top 16. Lap lead over the defending champions in the number 1 BMW. So BMW heading for a second successive victory with the fabulous V8 GTR. Here is the man that won this race back in 1970. Unbelievable. 35 years of racing around the world, in America, all over Europe, briefly in Formula 1, of course, for the March team. Always a popular character, Hans Stuck, son of a famous racer. One of the great drivers of the pre-war era was his father, and a great mountain climb expert too. The Manthe Porsche, despite its problems, continuing and having a little tag here. Just look at this, very, very close indeed. Timo Bernhard at the wheel, not a happy man. Shakes his fist, and here he is back in the pits. Well, we made up a lot of time. He says we're back in the top 10 now. I think we're 9th overall. It's about damage limitation. Obviously, it's a shame we can't win this race, which we led for such a long time. But, well, I guess we'll come back next year and have another go. So, heading towards the finish then, in 4th place overall, the 911 GT3, number 32 car, Dr. Edgar Althoff, Paul Hovenschneid, Norbert Fischer and Stefan Biel. So a great performance for them. They're 1 place in front of this car. Hans-Josef Böhmes, Thomas Kohl, Andreas Bovenspien and Dieter Schornstein in the GT3 Cup car. Meanwhile, the head of Opel Motorsport couldn't keep away, former winner a couple of years ago, of course, Walter Steichek, who well, won in the DTM back in the 1970s. He's in an Opel Astra Coupe in 39th place overall, 6th in his category. Yes, well, in the past I've always looked ahead, but now I have to look back and think about what's gone in the past. But we still enjoy it. With a car like this, you obviously can't fight against the big boys, but we just enjoy racing around the Nürburgring. And, well, we get a pretty good view of some of the fast cars going by as well. Class winners amongst the 2-litre specials, Claudia Hürtgen, Mark Henrique, Ralph Bornhorst and Torsten Schubert, and they finished in 11th place overall. Excellent performance by them. Well, last year in Britain, of course, we saw the Mazda Cup Series for the girls, all in RX-8s. Well, this is a German Mazda, but it's got 4 lady drivers in it. Stephanie Harm, Katharina Felsler, Nicole Lukek and Katie Droste, and they are in 55th place. Here's a Toyota Lexus with a hybrid engine, and amongst the drivers, 3 times 24-hour winner Mark Duez. So that's the estate car, complete with its hybrid engine. The best car from Group N finishes in 19th place, the Flepper Motorsport Honda Civic. Harold Thones, Norbert Burmes and Marcel Engels, the 3 drivers in that car. And despite losing an hour at the beginning, the Altson Porsche came through to 10th place overall. Obviously a big disappointment. Well, at one stage we said, let's pack our stuff up and go. But all the mechanics and everyone was so enthusiastic, they said, no, we can't go, although we lost an hour. And so we did race. Well, a final twist here at the Nürburgring with some hail right at the finish. The Viper just tiptoeing along. And then the flags waving here at the Nürburgring as the BMWs head home. Yet another glorious victory for the Munich mark. Great for Boris Said, with all that experience in America, to come over here. Not his first time, incidentally, crewing together with Pedro Lamy, Duncan Heisman, and of course Andy Prio. The flags are waving. As ever, some of the cars which are in trouble pushed home to say they've got to finish. And I don't know how they orchestrated this, not the top 5, but the 5 fastest cars in the race at the start, all in line astern. And it's an absolute storybook rookie drive in the Nürburgring 24 Hours from Andy Prio. When did he think he'd won?
About 5 minutes ago when we crossed the line. Can't take anything for granted around here. One thing I've learned with this place is everything is just thrown at you and you just don't know what to expect. Expect the unexpected, for sure.
So the European Touring Car Champion has another great result in his CV. BMW's first and second, the Viper coming home to third, then a whole group of Porsches behind that, and down in 9th and 10th places, 2 of the cars that we thought might finish on the podium. And interesting, a Subaru there finishing in 14th place, just behind the diesel Alfa Romeo. So the trophy is listed high in the air by Boris Said, Duncan Heisman, Andy Prio and Pedro Lamy. And BMW have done it again.